Aloe? Again?
Girls, sorry. Caraway and Aloe have ended up in the same costume 4 years in a row.
How do you guys and Professor Bunny know each other?
Oh, we
go to the same parties.
If you're an anime fan in any capacity, then there's a high chance that you've definitely heard of the name Crunchyroll. I'm not exactly that up to date with whatever streaming platform is the most popular with the general public these days, but to my knowledge, Crunchyroll is probably the most well known back in the day for being one of the only few streaming platforms purely for anime and Japanese media. I think just about everyone prefers to use Netflix these days, but these fuckers definitely had this industry on lock back in the day. Like a lot of corporate entities though, Crunchyroll has gotten caught up in a number of controversies throughout their existence, mainly for their snobby and sometimes downright scummy business practices. While I would love to go through all the shitty things they've done in agonizing detail, there's really no point in doing so. There's been so many hit pieces on these guys that there's actually nothing a schmuck like me can add to the conversation. However, I do want to point out that a large reason that a lot of people still support them despite their shortcomings is because of this very naive notion that they are somehow supporting the anime industry by paying for Crunchyroll services. The fact that a lot of big YouTubers at the time were also shilling the service along with shaming anyone who tried to pirate was also probably a giant factor as well. But of course, they were simply doing it out of pure passion for the medium, of course. All these 100% genuine creators want to do is support the industry. They weren't promoting Crunchyroll because of sponsorship. They were shilling because they want to support the industry. Pure moral integrity, as they would probably say.
It's out. Cool. So I can finally check it out. Kiss Anime, cause that site is free. And I isn't too cheap to pay for anime stuff. Oh, motherfucker! That's it. Fuck it. I'm just gonna go on crunchyroll.com/Misty. Cause that one's not gonna fuck with me.
For the average viewer, the average person that watches anime, reads manga, we could throw in manga in there, but mainly this is about anime. I honestly can't control you guys. I would prefer you do the right thing, but at the end of the...
If you want to watch along with me, I recommend using this kick-ass crunchyroll.com/digibro link to sign up for an account, because if you do, then Crunchyroll will literally give me $5.
Pirates just don't feel that they should have to pay for their entertainment, and they perform some Olympic-caliber mental gymnastics to justify that. There is no good reason to pirate anime. By going to crunchyroll.com/basement and signing up for a 14-day free trial of the internet's premier anime streaming service.
On August 22nd, 2018, Crunchyroll released the trailer for High Guardian Spice, the company's very first original anime.
Our characters are really diverse, our cast is really diverse.
Our writer's room is 100% female.
Their customers were, understandably, not too pleased to see their hard-earned money being used to fund this travesty instead of the actual studios in Japan. What's that? The American streaming site run by Americans is not giving my money to the Japanese? Say it ain't so.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Apparently, even some 90 IQ retards are gonna realize they're getting scammed if you're being this obvious about it. It's practically equivalent to shitting on your customer's plate and saying it's chocolate. And I know modern anime fans really love shit, but this one was just too smelly. The show was promptly bullied to oblivion by both average viewers as well as YouTubers. Years go by, and it really seemed like Crunchyroll were too embarrassed about the backlash to release it. All was right with the world. And then the Fire Nation attacked. After nearly 3 years, 3 fucking years, they actually managed to grow the fucking balls to release the final trailer for the show on the 7th of August 2020. Wait, hold on. Twitter? Not even on YouTube? Alright then. Now, in all fairness, the trailer was honestly not as terrible as I thought it'd be. Sure, the art style was as generic as a children's coloring book, the animation about as impressive as a 2006 Flash animation, dialogue as phoned in as an infomercial.
I'll never give up on any of my friends.
But overall, it could have been worse, I guess. At the very least, it wasn't pushing too hard on the pretentious message of most strong, independent women, and I even said so on Twitter. But then the show actually came out a couple of months later, and needless to say, it was a month full of content for all the YouTubers to cash on. Practically everyone and their mothers made a video taking a collective shit on it. Some put in as little effort as possible, while others analyzed this show down to every last atom to scientifically prove that it was a pile of shit. Now, if you go by the regular patterns on my channel, this would be the part where I spend the next 10 or so minutes just taking the absolute piss out of this show. But think again, you bigots. Let it not be said that I'm not a fair man. I mean, I'm really not, but let's pretend for a second that I am. am. I've never been one to listen to anyone on how I should feel about basically anything, and I'm not about to start with this. Whether you like it or not, this show had a significant impact on the community. You giving it as much attention as it got was a clear testament to that. So I gave it a watch, and I couldn't finish it. So as much as I'd like to go through this entire oh-so-riveting series and make fun of it, I don't have nearly enough patience to do that. If you actually really are desperate for that sort of content, trust me, there's plenty of other monkeys out there who can provide it. Me though, I think I can summarize my thoughts on this show based on what I've seen with just one video covering one episode, the first one. So let's do that, shall we?
Let's go, in and out, 20 minutes adventure.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
The episode begins with what I'm guessing is supposed to be a cinematic zoom out from the sun, before panning over to our two main characters.
Hi, Guardian! Whoa! Academy!
They then proceed to speak whimsically about their future plans, mentioning that they've spent their whole lives training for this very moment. They walk for a small bit before coming across their respective families and what I assume is their town's gate. After what I guess is supposed to be a heartwarming exchange of goodbyes, a carriage pulls up and the two climb on. They yell another set of goodbyes as the carriage drives off, triggering the opening song.
Bye, Dad! Bye, Chicory! Goodbye, Pebble! And hello to the rest of our lives!
What this introduction does well. 1. It introduces two of the main cast. We're not really told anything significant about these two, but we can figure out a few things from body language. Rosemary being the hyperactive enthusiast, while Sage is the more reserved and responsible best friend.
Wow! How original!
2. The voice acting is decent enough. I actually kind of like the voice for Rosemary's dad. It's a very good old man voice. 3. This flying chest thing is pretty cool, I guess. Yeah, that's about it. What this introduction does badly, beyond their deferring attitudes, we know absolutely jack squat about these two little turds. We don't know what exactly they're so excited about, why they're going to wherever it is they're going, or why we should care in the slightest. And you may be saying, oh, but this is just the opening sequence. They'll tell us later on, and I'll save you the trouble by letting you know now that they do not. We obviously find out where they're going, but we never find out what exactly a guardian even is or why these two want to become one. And judging from other reviews I've watched, they apparently never explain it throughout the whole season.
Good job!
Number 2. The dialogue is abysmal. The show is making it a point to be as vague as possible about the setting, while at the same time throwing words like High Guardian or mentioning Rosemary's mom, as if we're supposed to already give a fuck when they have established absolutely nothing. Rosemary's mom is gone? Why? Oh, okay, she's dead. Why is she dead? Why should we care?
I'm thrilled for you to learn about elixirs. Very important for a future healer.
High Guardian Academy doesn't just accept anyone you know. High Guardian Academy doesn't just accept anyone you know.
Doesn't just accept anyone you know.
Potions? Elixirs? I guess that hat means you're a witch or something? So is magic normal in this world? You gotta at least confirm one or two things with me here, man. Come on. Oh, okay, I guess it's sad and touching now because you're hugging and speaking melodramatically. Yeah, it's a mess. What this show has attempted to do so far is give small specks of exposition without making it sound like exposition. Keyword being attempt. They failed, miserably. To show you how to do this better, let's take a look at another series that does this much more effectively. And what better example to use in one of my favorite shows of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just so we're clear, I'm going to be skipping over this wonderful opening sequence of Katara monologuing. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing introduction that does a great job setting up the world and giving us exposition through both dialogue and visual presentation. However, this kind of opening narration is not a necessity to tell a good story. It's certainly a good addition, but not a must. High Guardian Spice also didn't have something like this, so it wouldn't be fair to try and criticize them for that. Instead, I'll be using the very first scene right after the narration. The episode begins with a cinematic shot before panning over to our two main characters sailing on a boat presumably close to their home. Seeing the resemblances so far? Fortunately, that's where the similarities end, as you'll immediately see that this scene has much more charm, characterization, and substance than whatever Crunchyroll thinks is good storytelling. The male one, Sokka, eyes the fish in the water, his eyes filled with focus and a hint of cockiness, which is reflected in his dialogue as well. While he's preparing to catch the fish, the girl, Katara, removes her glove before magically levitating the water around the fish and catching one. Sokka doesn't bat an eye. In fact, when he accidentally pops the water bubble, he's more concerned about his wet clothes than his sister's sister literally bending nature. Immediately we learn a whole bunch of things. Sokka is brash, cocky, and slightly bullheaded, while Katara is confident with an air of responsibility to her. We also find out that supernatural abilities like controlling water are apparently so common in this world that the average person is not in the least bit impressed by them. However, it's obvious not everyone is able to do this.
Yeah, an ancient art unique to our culture, blah blah blah. Look, I'm just saying that if I had weird powers, I'd keep my weirdness to myself.
This entire sequence I just described goes on for about a minute and a half, so it is shorter than the opening scene in High Guardian Spice. Yet it's able to convey so much more about the characters and world, and it does so in a way that feels both entertaining and natural. Mwah, beautiful. Number 3, stop this. You can't just put whimsical music and expect us to get excited for what's to come. That's not how this works. I don't know a single thing about these characters, and you're already expecting me to care about what they're going to do. Avatar spent the entire first episode establishing its characters and gave us time to get to know them. By the time the first actual emotional scene happened, which is at the beginning of the second episode, we actually feel something. Sure, we didn't exactly know a ton of things about our main cast, but Katara and Aang were bonding throughout the entire pilot. We saw them sharing laughs. Katara took him to her village, they rode penguins together, they build a friendship. So when Aang is banished from the village, you are able to sympathize and feel the sadness between the two of them. Emotional payoff is something you have to build up and work towards, not slap a sad soundtrack with some subpar sad voice acting. Good fucking lord, I gotta stop. We're only a couple of minutes into this and I'm already picking more nits than a black guy picks. Rosemary and Sage go through various modes of transportation, some more creative than others.
Pebble looks so... small. I guess it was small the whole time. And we just didn't know.
You're a whore. You're a whore, just admit.
After a long journey, they finally arrive in one of the most generic looking fantasy towns you could find. Look, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're going to make a claim like this...
It's giving us an opportunity to do things artistically that a lot of other shows and other studios really have forgotten how to do. I don't think anyone has seen stories quite like the ones that we're going to tell.
Then I expect something with a bit more spice to it. This is boring as shit. If it weren't for this hill, I would have thought they were trying to rip off the town from Konosuba like Kenja no Mago did. So, good job, Crunchyroll. You avoided plagiarism on that end. Anyway, the two arrive at a train station and we are introduced to two new characters, Alo and Anise. Now, I know that Vi from Arcane has recently destroyed the stereotype of characters with these kinds of haircuts being bad, but trust me, Anise brings it back. Take a quick good look at them and you tell me, what do you think these two characters are meant to be? If you guessed compelling and interesting young women with a strong, interesting relationship but are also strong and independent on their own, then you're fucking wrong! I told you, this is not Arcane, although they are similar in the fact that they love to wrestle on the bed. Minus any sort of subtlety. You'll understand what I mean by the end of the episode. Trust me. Now that they've arrived in the city of Lingard, they head on over to their new home where they'll be staying for the semester. The house structure is a little less than practical, but I'm not in architecture, so I won't comment on that. What I can comment on, though, is when they get to the top floor, which is where things get a little bit weird.
I guess we'll just sleep on the floor?
Okay, how the fuck does that even work? Look, I understand thinking an idea is cool in concept, but you can't just stop there and run with it. You have to stop and consider how it's going to look in the overall picture of your story. What these two just did is supposed to be something called new magic. Sage uses old magic. What's the difference between these two? I didn't get that far into the show to find out. However, I recommend you search up this clip if you want a glimpse of what kind of bullshit they're using their power system for. That said, let's take a look at this specific scene in particular. New magic seems to be something produced by this object called a sphere, while old magic seems to be something that's organically produced like what Alo is doing over here. So you can already kind of get a good idea of what they're playing at here. Old magic in this show is the kind of power that we are used to in several other fantasy stories, i.e. spells conjured through chanting or via magic circles. Meanwhile, new magic is technologically produced, assuming this wand thing is some sort of device, some Harry Potter shit if you will. According to Sage, apparently these two types of magic are incompatible, and the only reason these two are able to do it together is because because Aloe is an elf. That's all fine and dandy, but I've got a few questions. For starters, does this door just disappear after some time, leaving the people inside to be trapped in there until someone opens it up again? Do they have to summon the door every time they're up there? Was the hand holding really necessary? You're telling me they have to be joined at the hip just to access a fucking room in their own home? Based on the information I'm able to gather, there's nothing inherently wrong with the magic system they appear to be setting up. In fact, if handled correctly, I could actually see this becoming a pretty interesting concept. Unfortunately, it's small things like this scene right here that make the entire spectacle look fucking stupid because of how poorly they showcase their ideas. It's honestly kind of sad.
Well, that was a load of shit.
That night, Rosemary has a nightmare about her dead mother, and there's honestly not much to really learn. The only thing of substance we find out is that the main villain of this show is apparently darkness or something.
What I am is darkness.
Also, Rosemary's sword is her mother's. Dramatic wake up with tears in her eyes. Fast forward to the next day, and the two decide to go sightseeing around the town. They make it about 5 steps out of the house before Rosemary decides to chase after some sort of rat creature. I don't know why this kind of thing would be interesting, considering they don't bat an eye to a flying chest, ogres, a giant, and whatever the fuck this thing is. But sure, let's pretend this is particularly eye-catching compared to all those other things. So the two head on over to the town. Rosemary's locket gets snatched out of absolutely nowhere, and then she almost commits fucking murder, and then gets annoyed when the person she nearly beheaded has a bit of an attitude about it. This is Time, another member of the main cast. She's the gloomy and monotone one, or as I like to call it, the Blake Belladonna to their Team Ruby. So, is that a good thing?
No. No!
Ruby is a terrible show. If you have anything in your story that resembles it, especially in regards to your characters, then it's a giant red flag. Again, I did not finish this show, but from what I've seen, she's just about as stale and boring as Blake was too. I digress though, her scene isn't very long, she just kinda huffs at them for a bit and then walks off to do gloomy, edgy things, I don't fucking know. Rosemary then realizes that her locket has been stolen, and then freaks the hell out. They scamper around to try and find it, before seeing that a creature called a Trixie stole it. They chase after it.
Wow!
Before eventually ending up in a garden with Photoshop walls. But surprise, surprise, they stumble upon it using the locket for some sort of mating ritual. Despite the fact that it is now completely distracted and they have ample time to sneak up and grab the locket, they spend the entire time just watching these two rats make goo-goo eyes at each other. I think they meant for this whole scene to be majestic and beautiful, but it ends up just being really fucking awkward and stupid. But make no mistake, it was very important for us to see them mate. Why is that? You'll see! Should've done something earlier, dumbass. The locket gets broken, and it turns out it wasn't the locket itself that was important, but the picture of her mom inside it. And look, to be fair, there's nothing inherently wrong with this scene. If anything, it would almost actually be touching if it didn't feel forced as fuck. Seeing that Rosemary is a little bit down now, Sage takes her to a blacksmith to try and get the locket fixed. It is there that they meet Parsley, the final member of the main cast. She is very nice and has a lot of siblings. That's about as deep as her character goes. To her credit, she's definitely the most likable out of all 4 of them, but that's not much of an achievement. Turns out they're all going to be attending the same school together, so Parsley offers to fix it and hand it over to them the next day at the academy. They agree before making their way to leave, running into Time again on the way out.
Hold on, you got mugged on your first day?
I'm sorry, is there a better time to get mugged?
What the fuck is this dialogue? Holy fucking shit. That night, the two of them tell Anise and Aloe about the whole debacle. Here's where the payoff happens.
We saw it find its soulmate.
You got to be a guardian, in a way.
You protected a precious creature, and that let it find its perfect partner.
And that matters so much.
We fucking get it! You're gay!
That's right, folks, that whole sequence, the reason we sat through that entire thing was so that they could use it as a metaphor for these two gay women to reminisce on their gayness in all its gay glory. Gaily. Queer lives matter. The two stand at the entrance of the school the next day. There, they excitedly discuss about all the fun adventures they'll have in this new chapter of their lives. And by the way, this scene is in no way similar to another show surrounding 4 girls going into superpower school. Not at all.
I'm going to be so great at magic that I'll be able to wave one hand and make you whole again.
The this show fucking sucks. And that was the first episode of High Guardian Spice. Now when I found out about the release of this show, I genuinely did go into it with the intent of finishing it. However, I only managed to get to this scene in episode 3 before I promptly burned down my fucking computer out of pure shame.
You are a girl?
I'm transgender.
I don't know that word.
I was born into a female body, but it wasn't the right body for me.
But that's just my thoughts on the whole thing. I am in fact completely nitpicky and biased, so please make sure to remember to take my words with a grain of salt. I stand by most of the criticisms I've presented to the show, but truthfully, if I wasn't making a video on it, I probably wouldn't care too much about all these problems I pointed out in the first place. So yeah, sorry Crunchyroll. Maybe next time you'll make something of value.
Yeah. Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load.
This video is brought to you by the Based Blokecast, the podcast with absolutely zero filters. Or Jews.
I love that I can just say Nick.
I also opened up a second channel where I'll be uploading more casual and less edited videos there, so go check that out if you're interested. Okay, that's all, bye.